Hello everyone, my name is Cosmin and in this tutorial I'm going to be covering the topic of essential skills to have in order to be able to draw and follow along to any of the other tutorials that are going to be posted on this channel. In order to follow along, you're going to need the following materials: a sketchbook, an eraser, pencil sharpener, and a graphite pencil. For this video, I am using a 5B graphite pencil. This is medium soft. And we are going to start with number 1, pressure. And more precisely, the amount of pressure that we are going to apply on the pencil at any time during our drawing. The amount of pressure that we apply on the pencil while we are drawing, it's very important because it allows us to control the amount of graphite that we are going to transfer on the paper. This is one of the most important skills that we need to develop while drawing, because it's going to make the difference between bad drawings and good drawings. And in order to achieve this perfect pressure in our hand, we're going to need to practice, and we are going to start at the very beginnings with lines. Okay. And now, with the pencil, we are going to start by drawing a simple line from up, down, like this on the paper. The goal of this exercise is to be able to maintain the same amount of pressure applied on the pencil from the beginning of the line until the end of the line on the paper, and try to keep them as straight as you can. In drawing, we have essentially two types of lines. We either have straight lines like this, or like this, or in diagonal, in the other diagonal, or we have curves. When you are making these exercises, try to keep the same amount of pressure, as I've said in the beginning, from the beginning until the end of the line. This will give us a firm understanding of what kind of pressure I need to apply in order to have the same color on the line, or value intensity on the line, from the beginning till the end. Now, we're going to do the same thing, but now we are going to apply a lower amount of pressure when doing the lines on the paper, like barely touching the paper. Straight lines, horizontal or vertical, and diagonals. With this exercise, we will know the difference, we will be able to know the difference of the amount of pressure that we applied in order to have this line, which was much more darker, and the lighter one. Now we understand the value difference between them, and the amount of pressure on the pencil is going to allow us to create this illusion of value from dark to light by the amount of pressure that we apply on the pencil. And now we are going to move on and try to do the same straight lines and curved lines but holding the pencil from more towards the end and slightly, gently touching the paper. And we are going to see that this is the way in which we achieve the lightest value. When we are drawing, we need to be able to move on the pencil from the tip of the pencil towards the end of the pencil, depending on what do we want to achieve. For example, if you are holding the pencil lower, you have a very good control on small details, so you can draw the lines very precise, very straight and controlled. We are using the pencil in this way when we are drawing on the details of a drawing. When we are holding from more far away towards the end, we are using the pencil for drawing sketches, sketching, frames. Because it's more loose. So go ahead and try to practice on understanding the difference between holding the pencil from lower down and what does that feel to do lines, and how does it feel to apply less pressure, and the same way by holding the pencil from more far away, and try to feel the difference between letting the pressure be different when you are drawing on the pencil. You need to feel this, to get a grip on it, to understand how much the pressure that you put on a pen impacts the way that the line looks in terms of intensity as a value or precision onto the detail, depending on where you hold it on the pencil. Now that we have learned and we understand the way lines are created, we are going to move on in creating geometric shapes, basic geometric shapes, with the understanding of how we are using those lines. Now, in drawing, whatever the subject of the drawing is, you're going to have to make a sketch before. So when we start with the basic geometric shapes, in order to build confidence, we're going to approach a circle, a triangle and a square in the very same way. We're going to create a sketch first, and then we're going to, by you holding the pencil from more far away, creating those loose lines, and then we are going to go into details and create the sharp edges by holding the pencil more towards the tip. So we're going to hold the pencil from the back and we're going to create a triangle, and simply touching gently the paper, we're going to create the first line. You can go more times, you can adjust in which direction to fill it until it's in the correct way. Then we're going to sketch out the other diagonal, trying to mirror this one. And then we're going to put in our last line, like this. This is only a sketch. This is a sketch of a triangle. When I'm doing these lines, I am moving all of my arm in order to achieve these lines, soft lines. And now I'm going to go into the details more closer towards the tip and try to make the best line that I can on this side, but without applying the maximum amount of pressure that I can on the pencil. It's going to look a little more detailed. You're going to follow the guidelines that you have already on the paper, like this. Then we continue with the other one. If you make a slight mistake and you go a little on the side, it's not so important because it's not the final detail. We are not there yet. Complete the triangle. Close all corners. And now we already see that our triangle is more defined on the paper. We go in again, holding the pencil closer towards the tip, and try to create a more darker line over the guideline that we have just made. Like this. I am applying a little more pressure on the pencil. Once you are satisfied with the way the line works, move on to the next one. Try to follow very precisely the guidelines that you have already laid down on the paper. The same. Satisfied, you move on to the last line. Now our triangle starts to look better. It's starting to feel like you've made it using a ruler. And the last, we go on the final details, holding the pencil close, very close towards the tip, and putting in the final line over by pressing even harder on the pencil. We intensify the dark on all of the three sides of the triangle. This takes practice and time, but eventually you will get there, and it's possible that you can also make it from your first try. There we go. Now our triangle looks very good. I have an eraser with me, not necessarily because I am making mistake on the drawing, because I am taking it slow. I am layering everything until I get to the final details. So I'm pretty sure of the outcome in the end of the final details. But in order to erase the sketching around all the lines that have been previously made on the paper, you can gently erase them away. Outside, you should be careful not to touch the detail line, and inside. Like this. This creates contrast between the white paper and the dark lines of the triangle. It looks the drawing look, it makes the drawing look better. Okay, so now we continue with a square. The same, we try to do a loose sketch. In the beginning, we try to maintain the same size as the triangle. For this, we can do some lines on the paper very loosely, all the way to the other side. And like this, we can make sure that our geometric figures are the same size, all of them. Like this, very loose, the same as I've done with the triangle. Very loose and slow. I can go over as many times as I want, as long as I'm not applying pressure on the pencil. The value of the line will not grow darker. Good. Now I go a little more, the same like for the triangle, and I put in the second detail, meaning I'm going to try to shape the line a little better, not applying the hardest amount of pressure, because I will not be able to erase it after if I make mistake. So I'm just following along, I'm just making sure that it's a little more in definition, the line. And you can go from left to right to left, in whichever direction you want, as long as your focus is to make the line straight. The same, I'm going to go now more in depth, try to have more control on the line that I am setting on the paper, while applying even also a bigger amount of pressure. When drawing, you need to make sure that your pencil is always sharp. So for this, of course, we need the sharpener. When you have a tip on the pencil, it's easy for you to go from very small details to large details and coverings by simply tilting the tip of the pencil. We have now the final detail for this square as well. And we are going to take the eraser and erase all of the sketching, the sketch lines that we have made, the loose ones that go everywhere, in order to create, of course, contrast, so that our square is very visible and it looks very defined. You can go in after and correct everywhere where you have entered over the line with the eraser, and try to keep the same value in the line. To be, what I'm saying is to be the same darkness everywhere. Okay, so now we move on to the circle. Now the circle, it's made out of a continuous curved line, and for this we're going to hold the same. We create a sketch. We're going to hold the pencil again from the towards the end, and before touching the paper, as you can see, I'm not touching the paper. I'm already going to start to create the motion of a circle here, and then slowly I'm going to go down until I touch the paper, when I feel confident that this is the motion for the circle. And I try to sketch it slowly on the paper. Let the pencil gently touch the paper. Try to fit in with the guidelines of height that you have set already from the triangle. And then again go over until you feel that it looks like a circle. It's not egg shape, it's not an oval. Then again we go in a little more details, but for the circle we cannot go down directly with the tip yet. We're going to have to try to define a little more the circle using very light pressure on the pencil. And we're going to do the first semicircle side on this side. Then we're going to try to do the other side of the circle. However, it is very impressive when you just take the pencil and you directly try to sketch an almost perfect circle on the paper using one stroke, one line. That is a skill that is acquired during a very long amount of time. The best approach is this. Then we are going to go again, creating more detail. And trying to shape up the line. It's not blurry anymore. Not so blurry. A sphere is going to take a little longer to create because curved lines are a little more harder to handle. It's a skill that takes a little more time to develop. Straight lines are more easier for the hand. But in time, you will start to develop this sense of how the joints in the finger work in your hand, and you're going to use that like some sort of a compass that you are doing circles. Then I'm going into, for the last details, of course I'm holding the pencil low so I can create a nice line, very defined. Like this. Slowly go over everywhere where I feel that I've missed something. And then I'm going to use the eraser and I'm going to remove all the sketch lines. This is the last procedure in the drawing, using the eraser. Inside and outside the circle. Now remove all the height sketch lines in the drawing. Like this. Like this. And you are left with three perfectly aesthetic looking geometrical shapes on the paper. A triangle, a square, and a circle. The way in which we have drawn these figures, it's the way in which you tackle any kind of drawing, no matter how complex it is, because in reality everything is made up of variations of triangles, variations of squares and circles. If you know how to sketch this, you will be able to find the correct figure of almost every form. And it's the way I've told you in the beginning, the way we approach this by using a sketch, then applying more detailed on the drawing, and keeping in mind always the amount of pressure that we are applying on the pen. It's going to give us a very good result in the end. And like this we are practicing on everything that we are doing this very essential skill of applying the correct amount of pressure on the pencil. Okay, and now we are going to transform these two-dimensional geometric shapes into three-dimensional geometric shapes. And we're going to approach this in the same way. We're going to create a sketch first, and then we're going to go into the details. So for example, the triangle, if we were to transform this shape into a pyramid, we will first have to sketch out all the other lines that are missing in order to achieve that. We know that a pyramid has a base, and if it's a four-side pyramid, it will have down at the base a square. But a square seen in 3D is distorted due to perspective. So we're going to sketch down at the base how a square would look if we would be able to put it down on the paper and look at it from the side. Is this shape here. Then from the top we're going to connect the other corner. The same, sketching lightly, applying pressure on the pencil, and add the last one, the last line. Now we understand how the pyramid looks like. We're going to take the pencil from a little closer towards the tip and add the detail. This side of the triangle, it's not transparent from the pyramid. So the details inside there we will not be able to see inside the triangle. But we must understand they are there. We have to have a feeling of how the three-dimensional object looks like. And we're going to go into more details only on the lines that we know that are outside of the main triangle. Sharpen the details a little more on the lines. And then we go in for the final details, creating a sharp, dark line with the pencil by applying more pressure and controlling the pencil, because we are very low at the tip. We have control over the line. Then we take, of course, the eraser and we wipe out the guidelines from inside of the triangle. We do not need them anymore. We cannot see through the wall, this wall of the pyramid inside. And now we have, instead of a triangle, a pyramid. and we understand it as a three-dimensional object, a pyramid, just by using lines. The same technique is going to be applied for the square. The base for the square, the same. It's a square, but seen from the side for a cube. So we're going to sketch it. The square does not have a tip like the pyramid. The top of the square is the same as the bottom. So we're going to try to mimic exactly the same shape as down on top. Like this. Sketchy, very sketchy. Holding the pencil very loose, creating the lines so that we make sure that they look the same. We're going to unite the two geometric figures that we have drawn from up, down here on this side and inside. The same like as the triangle and the pyramid. What is inside through this side of the cube we cannot see, but we must know and understand it's there. Because of the nature of the shape of the cube, we now have two sides visible as of one side on the pyramid. So we know that here this line is also not visible. It's going through the wall, the roof of the cube. So when we go in for the detail, we are going to try to reshape and define the outer edges. Going in for a little more darker value. Trying to put a little more detail, but still blurry. Not fully defined. So that we understand this side and this side better now. We don't continue on these guidelines because they are, now we know that they are inside. So for the final details we go in and darken it. Once we understand the whole shape, we darken it all the way. Of course, in the end, we take the eraser and we erase all the guidelines that are inside of the cube that we have just created on the paper. And then we go outside, delete all the guidelines, and like this, of course, as I said before, we create contrast between the white paper and the dark value of the graphite. Going for the details, where you have went with the eraser over the details line and try to sharpen them. There we go. Now we have a three-dimensional shape, a cube. Now we know that from a triangle we've created a pyramid. From a square we've created a cube, and we can create a cube. But from a circle we can create a sphere. So the equivalent of a circle in 3 dimensions is a sphere, and the sphere does not have any straight edges. So that means that the only edges are the edge of the circle, both in 3 dimensions and 2 dimensions. So we are not going to be sketching out over the circle any more hard details, but we are going to sketch out the way in which a circle, a sphere, sorry, would look if we were to slice it from the side like this. That would create on the sphere, on the circle, it would create an oval. Because if you imagine a blade going in through the sphere, from the side like that, it will look like this. Let's say the blade is a square, but from the side it's being distorted due to perspective. It will hit the sphere in a curved way. Like this. Because the sphere is coming out of the paper in this way. Everywhere on every surface it's going to be a curve. And this is going to be in the back, once the blade is coming out in the back. And we cannot see that because it's through the sphere. And the sphere is opaque. Let's say you cannot see through it. The blade will be this one, here. Like this. And this will be the shape that is going to live on the sphere if it's going to go through it and create a section. Just like the moon in the sky is round, and depending on from which angle the light is hitting the moon, we're going to have a different phase of the moon. If it gets more light or less light, it creates the same, a section between light and dark. So, if the blade were to be real, and I'm going to define it a little more here in the drawing, that means that if we would look with our 3-dimensional eyes, let's say like this side of the sphere will not be visible anymore through the wall. I'm gonna make it more lighter. Like that. But this side of the sphere will be piercing out through the other side. This one would have been lost behind the blade, and this one would have been visible. this guideline would not be visible from the back. We just used it in order to be able to draw a good oval like this. Okay. And this takes me to the next skill that we need to learn, and that one is in which way we are going to fill in these geometric figures in order to really create the illusion of three-dimensional objects. And for this we are going to use a technique called hatching. So hatching is basically, this is what it is: the way in which we apply the graphite to the paper when filling, as opposed of the lines when we are creating contour. And hatching is basically, you are moving the pencil on the paper in a up and down motion like this, while slowly moving your hand on the paper in order to create like a constant value on the paper. Now when you are hatching, it's not just drawing lines next to each other like this, one line, and then I go up again, one line, and then I go up again, one line. No, it's more of a fluid motion. You go more of a zigzag. You go up and you continue down, up and you continue down, up and you continue down. Just very, very, very close together. You try to make the lines loose by holding the pencil a little more towards the end, and slowly trying to reduce to maximum the distance between the zigzags. When we are doing this, we are not putting in details. Not yet. So in this way, and this, we are going to fill these three-dimensional objects with the correct shapes in order to create the illusion of value. When you are hatching, this motion can be done in any direction. Diagonally, in the other diagonal, in the same way that we are using the lines, circles. In the same way, we have lines, straight lines, diagonals, horizontal, vertical, in whichever way we need in order to achieve the desired result. Circles. The goal here, when you practice hatching is to achieve the same amount of value all over your drawing. What I mean by value is basically if you would have a color picture and you would convert that color picture to black and white, value is the correspondence of every color in black and white picture. And when you are drawing with a dark pencil, you try to achieve the same intensity of value all over your hatching. And you go by layering. First, you have to start really light with the hand, depending on the intensity of the value that you want. Very light is a very light value. If you want it more darker, then you would simply go again over it, applying a little more pressure on the pencil over the value that you have already laid down on the paper. If you wanted more darker, then you go again one more time over the value that you have just laid down on the paper until the moment that you are satisfied. If you are drawing, for example, the moment that a shadow is dark enough that for your eyes it looks very similar to the one in the photo that you have a reference. So if we are going for something very dark, we would go many times layering over it in any direction we want in order to achieve the correct coverage on the paper, meaning to fill in all the little cracks and holes that are left in the paper. Depending on the paper that you are using, of course, because this paper that I am using is textured, so it has more wrinkles inside. The smoother the paper is, the smoother the value is going to look everywhere. Now, when we are drawing, not only we have to layer the sharp shadows, but we have to learn how to make also the soft shadows and the transition between them. The transition between a dark value to a light value. And when you are drawing, because the medium you are using is dark, we are going to start to interpret the darker values first. But we draw in the lightest value we possibly can in the beginning, and we'll slowly layer it towards the darkest value. So if I were to start here and say that I want to achieve a very smooth transition between a very dark value and a very light value, I'm going to start by applying the lightest value on the paper. And then I'm going to layer again from the beginning, from the left side towards the middle, using more pressure, but instead of keeping the pressure constant, I'm going to be slowly releasing the amount of pressure that I am applying on the pencil towards the end, so that less graphite remains here than here. Here is more graphite, here is less graphite added, and less and less until it's the same value. If I want it more darker, I simply go again, apply more pressure, and gently move towards the middle again, releasing the pressure on the pencil as I get closer towards the middle, and then transition into the light value. If I wanted to go the darkest as it can, I would simply go as dark as I can here without breaking the paper, and then slowly releasing the pressure. The same towards the end of the drawing until I'm at the lightest value. You see, here now we have created a very smooth transition between dark and light. And we need to understand these two types, because when they are hard edges, shadows and fillings in our drawings, we need to apply the same amount of pressure when layering from the beginning towards the end, everywhere on the defined place where the shadow is or the filling is in the drawing, and slowly achieve the darker value. And when we are using the smooth transition between the values, it means that there is a soft transition between the dark and the light, the shadow and the light in the three-dimensional objects. And this technique we are using when shading round objects in 3 dimensions that have curves, not straight edges. And the combination between them gives the illusion of a perfectly 3-dimensional object. So this type of hatching and this one with the smooth transition. We're going to try and shade in these geometric figures using these two techniques, and which one applies to which one of the figures. For this, if we are trying to create the illusion of 3 dimension with value, we are going to need a light source. Imagine ourselves on the paper a point from which the light is shining on our 3-dimensional objects. So let's say that the light is here in this corner. The right up. So that means that the light is going to be hitting our objects from the side. And on each type of object, it's going to leave a distinct shadow depending on the shape of the object. For example, the pyramid will have here a light side. It means that the light will shine brighter here, but not on this side, not so bright on this side, and neither on the one on the back completely. So when we are trying to create the illusion of 3D, we're going to be to start by filling in the dark side, lightly trying to get the same value everywhere on the visible dark side of the pyramid. Try to stay very good within the lines, inside of the lines, and fill in order that you get the same value all over the side. This whole side should have the same value of darkness. In the beginning, to make us understand that this side is dark. Like this. The same on the square. We would know that this side will receive light, this side will receive light as well, but this side will not receive light. So we can fill it in the same way, trying to keep the same value, the same amount of pressure applied on the pencil on every stroke. So we can maintain the same value. Cross hatching helps us to spread the same value correctly everywhere in all the tiny little cracks and holes that we have in the paper. Fill in the texture correctly. Like this. Now we can already see how our objects are even more three-dimensional because we've added the value, the contrast between dark and light even more in our drawing. Like this. Now on the sphere, because it is a continuous curve everywhere, no matter how you would turn it around in your hands, and I'm going to draw a sphere here. Like this. Of course, first sketching it out, trying to get the perfect circle out of all the lines that I'm putting down on the paper, then going in for a little more details. Define this circle even more. Like that. Try to make it appear like a blurry circle. Then of course I'm going to go into more details, holding the pencil more closer towards the tip, like this. And then go into even more details in order to define the shape of the circle more in depth, like that. As you can see, it takes time in order to achieve a good result. So the circle, to be transformed into a sphere, that would mean that the light would hit it from there and it will cast a light on the sphere the same way as a blade would cut the sphere in two from the side in which the light is going. It will be a 90 degree angle cut opposite from the light source. So that means it would create again an oval like shape on the sphere, the lid part of the sphere. So we will try to define this. Like that. And we are going to fill in the dark side of the sphere using the same value from the middle where the section cut it in two, here, until the end, trying to have the same value. Like that. Then we're going to take the eraser and clear out everything that we have by mistake drawn outside of the geometrical figures, including the guidelines for our light source. Like this. Make it nice and clean, because this will help the eye see more the three-dimensional shape that is coming out of these two-dimensional objects. Like this. Delete the light source. You know where the light source is now in the drawing. Okay. Now we can see very clearly and understand more how these objects became more three-dimensional. And we have used so far only the first technique from hatching. We're going to apply the second technique of hatching, and we're going to create even more details in the drawings. For example, on the pyramid, when the light is coming from up here, it's going to mean that the lower side of the pyramid is darker, and slowly, because it's a tilted plane, is going to get more light, it's going to catch more light. And we know that this side, back side of the pyramid as well, gets the least amount of light. So it's going to be darker also on that side. And we can go ahead and add exactly from the edge a darker value there. Sharp between them. And down. Here. Like this. Simply going up and down, up and down, up and down, left, right, left, right. Okay. Now these two sides are obviously darker. The light is going to hit this triangle lighter here and darker here, like this. It's going to create this semi-circle here. So means that the gradual passing from dark to light is going to start in this corner, the one that's most farthest away from the light source. And we're going to go darker and then press lighter on the pencil, release the pressure, release, release, release more until we get into the semicircle here that we are want to go. That has the same value like everywhere. Then we go again, we create it even more darker in the beginning, and we go again until the middle of the drawing, till where we know that slowly this transition has to happen from here, dark, lighter, lighter, the lightest. We're going to do this also from this line, knowing that the light is going to hit more the more it hits up and the less it hits down here. So this means it's going to be more darker down here. So here we are going to make it more darker with some lines in a same way like here towards down. Lighter and lighter and lighter pressure until here. We create this semicircle here. Like this is going. And then there is the last one, which is going like this. This one. Now this pyramid has really taken a more three-dimensional shape. It looks a lot more 3D. A lot more three-dimensional. And the more you focus on this transition to be graduate, to lose this betweens, to create these values so that it's pleasing for the eyes, the transition between the dark and the light, the more you're going to realize that the drawing gets more and more realistic. Like this. The same here for the square, the light is coming from there. It means that this corner is the farthest away from the light. So I'm going, and this is going to be the lightest of the shadow. So I'm going to have here like a semicircle like this, from this corner to this corner. And the transition is happening here, the same as here when the semicircle started. Here is the darkest and I go there dark. I press a little more and then I slowly release pressure as I'm going upwards towards the semicircle that I've created, and slowly until the same value. Here I'm very light with the pencil. And again down there I am pressing more. And towards here I am very light with the pencil, barely holding it. While here I am like on the details. I do the same thing from this side. Try to achieve the same effect. And I move towards the middle of the drawing. I really have to follow along the semicircle that I drew in the beginning in order to create this illusion that there is the darkest and here is the lightest. Here's the dark, here's the light. So I go in many times, slowly layering everything, so that I don't miss any values along the way. I am making sure that the next value that I apply needs to be there. It looks aesthetically correct. How the way in which the light is going from dark to light. Like this. I know now that this cube, because of this light, is going to get also here. Here is going to hit the most amount of light. Like this. This semicircle that is drawn here is going to be on every side of the square which hits the light. And that means that here is going to be darker and here is going to be light. The same here is going to be darker and there is going to be light. Here in the same way, but a little light, more lighter on the hands. You have to be towards the real light. The same here. It has to be really light because there is a lot of direct sunlight hitting here, direct light on these sides, but on this side there is no direct light hitting. Here as well, the same. Towards the edges is going to have a little more darker values, but there is going to be very light. Okay, so we're going to delete a little again to make sure that our white stays white, so that our eyes always understand the different contrast that we are creating. We have to train our eyes to see this contrast all the time. It's what allows us to create the illusion of 3 dimension on a 2-dimensional plane. The combination between your eyes and your hand, how in tune your eye is to the difference of change, and how good are you at feeling the difference between intense pressure and light pressure, they are linked. They are linked together. It's an hand-to-eye coordination. Perfect coordination. Okay. Now we have seen how the light affects a pyramid, the light affects a cube. Let's see how the light affects more in depth a sphere. So we have already created this semi-moon shape. And we know this is the middle section of the sphere, if it would be cut in two. So the transition has to happen here, in this point. From the darkest, which is now no longer a corner, it is a curved shape. From the darkness point here, opposite, exactly opposite of the light source, towards the lightest. And we are creating the same effect, using the same technique, from dark, slowly releasing pressure towards the light, just on a curved surface. Instead of having a corner, we have a curved surface. Once we see how it looks, we go again and intensify this darker side. Then we slowly release pressure towards the center of the sphere. Here, the center of the light, actually. And in this way, we are creating this illusion of actually seeing a ball on the paper and not a circle anymore. It's very clear now that this is a ball. It's not a circle, two-dimensional object. It's a sphere. The smoother your transition is, the better the drawing is going to look. If you are able to combine correctly these two techniques, you are going to achieve a more smoother transition. You have to really learn and understand the pressure. That's very important that you apply, and how you release that pressure as you try to achieve lighter and lighter values. And like this we have a ball and a square and a cube and a pyramid, which they are very defined. They have a very good shape, and we know and we understand what they are. This skill is very, very, very important, essential when drawing. And we need to master this ability to coordinate correctly our vision, what we see, with our action of the hand and what is it doing, so that I can see what I want and how to do it. It's a hand-to-eye coordination. So I really do hope that you enjoyed this first tutorial, and if you did so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like, share and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on the upcoming videos. All the best.